Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
How does the trip go?
It didn't go well as I thought it was going to go, that we would be in bliss, having a good time. There were just things that, with myself and my children, that immediately I could tell was to her annoyance in regards
like
to
what?
me.
This is the plaintiff, Michelle Kirkland. She says she and the defendant went on a trip to Maui, Hawaii, and the woman's trying to get out of paying for her half of the trip. She can't believe she has to actually sue her in court today. But former friend or no former friend, she needs her $1,097 back and is suing for it right here, now. This is the defendant, Wesina Fox. She says she doesn't owe the plaintiff any more money than she's already given her for this trip. The woman is trying to tack on extra charges she never agreed to. The trip was a disaster because the woman was very nasty to her kids. And she has paid this woman enough for this trip from hell. She's accused of unfriending a friend.
All parties, please raise your right hand.
What you are about to witness is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in civil court. Both parties have agreed to drop their claims and have their cases settled here before Judge Marilyn Milian in our forum, the People's Court.
People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milian is presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right. Ms. Kirkland, you're suing your former friend, I guess, Ms. Fox, for $1,097, half the cost of a room at a resort on a trip you folks took that, according to you, she's supposed to pay and didn't. How do you two know each other?
We were co-workers down at the Port of Los Angeles.
And how long did you work together?
From 2008 until I retired in 2019.
And you stayed friends?
Yes.
All right, tell me about the trip.
Okay, the trip was originally purchased November 29, 2019 for myself and my granddaughter and her daughter. So it was my grandchild, my great-grandchild. And on November 11th, my granddaughter informed me because of her health, she wasn't going to be able to make the trip. She was on dialysis and it was a problem. So I'd spoken to Ms. Fox previously about the trip, and she had expressed an interest. I had already spoken to someone else, and they said they wouldn't be able to take the trip.
Okay, this was 3 days before the trip.
3 days.
That
It
your
was last
granddaughter,
minute.
who's on dialysis, tells you, I'm not going to be able to make it.
Not going to be able to make it.
All right, so at that point, the house is over. Was it a house, an apartment? What?
It was a resort.
A resort. So
Yeah,
the room was already paid for. It had been paid for the previous year?
2 years.
2 years earlier.
2 years previous.
Okay, because they gave you a discount if you booked right away for the next time, and that's how they get you. All right, so now we're 3 days away, and this is a trip to Maui.
To Maui.
All right.
Non-refundable.
Yeah.
Go or just lose it.
Right. So there were airline tickets in your granddaughter and your great-granddaughter's name.
Correct.
And then you call the defendant and suggest to her, hey, pack your bags, come with me.
I said, here's the trip. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath resort. It's about 2,000. I just rounded it off, and I told her that the airline tickets, the hotel, everything was already paid.
I have a question for you. How did you tell her all this stuff? Through text?
Nope. Told her on the phone. Called
All right.
her.
So then there's some language in the text where you say, we just have to switch the tickets to your name, but you can't switch tickets, right?
Yeah, I could. The airline, I called them. They flipped the tickets from my granddaughter and from Chanel and Deja's name to Asina, Jay, and Harvest's name.
Okay, so were you under the impression that you were paying the switch fee or the actual fee for the airline tickets?
The switch fee, like name change.
Right, but you charged her the whole fee for the airline tickets.
The whole fee was what was due. It was $1,919, yes.
Right. So were you able to give some of that money back to your granddaughter for the flights she wasn't able to use, or?
There was no money back. That was the total amount because
To
there was
switch?
an extra ticket. There were 3 tickets.
Yes, I understand.
Instead of the 2 tickets.
It's LA to Maui, 3 tickets. So the switch fee was $1,900?
The whole package.
You're not listening to me. I want to know if that's how much 3 from scratch airfares are for someone to fly from LA to Maui, or whether that's on top of what you already paid for your great. Okay.
No, that was the whole fee for the airline.
Okay. So who had bought your granddaughter and great granddaughter's ticket?
I did.
All right. And how much had you paid for those?
I believe it was originally $1,200. I don't think I have that with me.
Okay, so let's say it's $1,200. Right. When you go to switch the tickets into her name, how much more did you have to pay?
I don't have that with me.
Does the total amount to the $1,900?
Yes.
Right. So the idea was then that she was reimbursing you for your great-granddaughter's
I wasn't
ticket.
trying to make any money on it.
No, you were trying not to lose money.
Exactly. I was just
right.
simply
So
being
okay,
reimbursed.
I want to be clear then. In your mind, you were just going to pay that upcharge, but in her mind, you were going to pay for all of your tickets. And in any event, when you get the bill for the airlines, which is in the 3 days before the trip, you say, okay, that's fine, right?
No, she didn't present that paperwork to me until 1 hour before we were leaving at the airport.
Well, how were you packing to? Did you tell your kids, pack, we're going to Maui?
Yes.
Like without knowing how much it was going to cost you?
I had an idea that I was under the assumption that at least maybe under $1,000 for the name change. I was like, okay. And
yeah, but where
because
did you
we
get
had
that figure from?
I just was randomly coming up with that.
Okay, yeah, no, that's not a really good policy. Anyway, so now it's an hour before you're heading to the airport, and you're like, well, okay, that's what I'm paying, because you're not going to tell the kids, unpack, we're not going to Maui.
Yes, it was. The way it was presented was pay me back when you could. So when I got presented at the airport with the paperwork of what the charges were, in that moment, 1 hour before we were leaving, I was like, okay, I pay her back when I could.
So now
I'm
you go on
okay.
the trip, and how does the trip go?
It didn't go well as I thought it was going to go, that we would be in bliss, having a good time. There were just things that with myself and my children that immediately I could tell was to her annoyance in regards
Like
to
what?
me and my children. So
How old are the kids?
at the time, my daughter was 3 and my son was 12.
Yeah, if you're not used to being around a 3 and a 12-year-old, it's just, you're not used to be, you
Yeah, absolutely.
forgot what it's like, or it's all right. So anyway,
Absolutely. So there was one incident. My children and I got scolded because we threw food in the trash can in the kitchen, and I told my son after that moment, I said, "Hey, for now on, if we bring any food in, let's just dump it at the elevator and just come on in the room with either nothing or just don't even utilize the trash can." I was respecting that. She didn't want food in the trash can. There was an incident. My 3-year-old, she walked into her room with her tennis shoes on, and she almost just went at her like, "Take your shoes off." And I was like trying to, get out of the room,
it's not safe.
That's what I felt at that moment. And then there was another incident. I got scolded because I was accused of having thrown salad dressing away. And I remember I explained to her, I said, "No, your dressing spilled on the other items in the refrigerator," and I cleaned it out. That somehow turned into I threw her dressing away, and she exploded on me. And then leading up from that time, we had the last explosion, which is what I explained, where I stated that, okay, I met my max. Like, this is done. I'm not sure what's going on here for why these antics are being paraded at me in this dynamic with my children, but there's no capacity for this, and communication severed in that moment on that last day.
You'd known each other for years and
Yes.
years. Isn't that weird? Why didn't anybody just sit down and say, hey, what's going on?
I didn't know how to approach the situation. She was so that last day leaving, I thought she was going to leave us at the resort. And so the silence was so cold that I just respected it. I was like, okay, she's in her feelings about this whole matter. I'm going to honor that. I'm going to let you have your space. And that's what I did. And I never reached out. What I really thought was I knew in a couple of weeks would be her annual Christmas party for the St. Alexandria Shelter for Abused Women and Children. And I just thought, I was like, okay, this would be my time to kind of come back in and maybe we can amend things here and get this right. I didn't get the invite. And I was like, okay, I think she's done with this. Like, no contact. The next communication I got was the demand letter I received on February 3rd.
Asking you to pay for your share of the hotel room.
Yes.
And you had never expected to pay for that.
No, that
According
was
to
never
you,
discussed.
did she ever tell you, before that moment, did she ever tell you how much that was and how much you were
Negative.
expected to pay?
Negative.
All right. Let me hear from you, Ms. Kirkland. How did that trip go?
Here's the evidence. on
Okay,
the
we'll look
trip.
at that in 1 second.
She got this.
Tell me.
She got this on November 11th.
Okay, I'm going to look at that in 1 second. Can you tell me how that trip went?
Well, initially, things were moving along. I sent her the message with the cleared information on the flight. She couldn't have even gotten into the airport had she not had this information. So I gave her the information up front.
Did you ever give her information about the cost of the timeshare or whatever it was, the
Yes.
suite?
Yes.
Is that in your text? Because I don't find it.
It's not in the text. Okay.
The only thing in the text is the flight, right?
I verbally told her.
Okay, watch
all
this
of
though. The only thing in the text is the flight, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you say you verbally told her. You say she verbally did not tell you. She never told you. Didn't tell you in text, didn't tell you. And the first time I see it in writing is in January, 2 months later, when she's hurt because she didn't get an invitation to your Christmas party. But you're infinitely more hurt because your granddaughter passed away during that time, correct?
I'm not more hurt. I'm just saying that it happened. That's not the sequence of events. She's explaining them. Okay, the sequence of events was before we even left for the trip, she had signed up to sponsor a child. She never fulfilled that, to sponsor a child for the Christmas party. She knew that. So she knew exactly when the date was. It wasn't any different than it's been for the last 17 years that I've been hosting this event. So for her to even say that she didn't get an invitation, whether she got one or not, she'd already signed up. I've got that. I've got it in my records, okay? I then invited her to take my granddaughter's place, but not to pay for her trip, because she had told me previously, I've always wanted to go. That's one of
No,
my places
I understand
I want to take
that.
my
What comes into
Well, it
play
wasn't a
here?
free
Wait,
trip.
listen. Of course, it's not a free trip. But is the trip supposed to cost her the flight alone, or is the? Oh, I'm not asking you. I'm pondering, and so I need you to just listen. The question in this lawsuit is not, is she supposed to pay for the airline tickets? She's already paid you for the airline tickets, right? As soon as you sent your demand letter, she sent you the $1,900. What she is disputing is that you ever told her that she had to pay for half of the, because you would have lost that anyway. If she went or didn't go, you had paid that 2 years earlier. So, and you couldn't find anybody else to go. So she's saying that you have never presented her with a bill until you got mad at her for other stuff. Your granddaughter, I'm sorry to say, passed away during that time.
Yeah.
And according to you, she didn't even call you, even though you know she knew.
Yeah.
And after that, you submit a bill for the hotel. And it's the first time that's in writing.
Okay. The reason that I did not submit the billing earlier was because I was just finishing, when we were in Maui, I was finishing up a fundraiser that I had done for Hurricane Ida in New Orleans. I'd just been back 2 weeks. I'm still doing the paperwork. I told her that before we left on the trip. I said, I'm going to have a lot of business to take care of, and I'm not going to be able to spend a lot of time with you guys. So, you know, you do what you do, and I'm going to do what I do.
Were the children irritating you? Like, were they...
No, I took her son to the basketball game on November the 11th. So I didn't have a problem taking Jay to a game.
Okay, but here's my question. On the trip, how did the trip go?
The trip went rocky.
How come, though?
Okay, well, after she arrived, She seemed a little testy. When I picked them up from the airport, she seemed a little testy, okay? And I just said, well, let's go have lunch. And you're probably hungry, I'm hungry. Let's just go have lunch, because the flight came in late. We went to the restaurant on Front Street and had lunch and took them to the resort and showed her the rooms. And I had already told her, I guess the night before, I had told her that I had ordered a bed for her son. Because the resort only had the queen-size bed. And I said, you know, I've ordered a bed for Jay, a pull-out bed, and it's only $20 for the whole week. That didn't seem to make her very happy at all, okay? So, and I say that because she paid for the bed under a separate check for $20 under protest. That's how she indicated it when she finally paid in February. Our initial conversation was, I know that you don't have the money. You can pay me when we get back. She said she would start paying me the next check at the end of November. She would pay through the end and probably finish it off with her vacation check in February. So she then said, and you know, and I know her pattern of behavior because we've been friends for, you know, we had been friends for years. So then, after we get to the resort, they see the room. She seemed pleased with that. The children wanted to go play, and fine. I'm doing paperwork. I've got people calling me about their different sponsorships of children and adults. We had 200 people we were trying to cover, so it was a lot to do. I did make one trip or two trips down to the water, with them. On that Wednesday, the 17th, I took them to lunch.
So tell me about the rocky parts.
That was it.
Well, you said it went rocky. What made it go rocky? Why do you say it was rocky?
When we were at the lunch, and that's where I was getting ready to explain. When we were at the lunch, I ordered, I just told them, order whatever you want. And it was at the Hula Grill, mid-price, and I said, I'm paying for it, just order. So her son was ordering, and she told him, no, order from the child's menu. And he was like, but I'm hungry. And she goes, no, just order from the child's menu. And then when he finished the children's menu, because it was like a mac and cheese and something else, very small portion, this was a 12-year-old boy. He's still hungry. So he said, Mom, I'm still hungry. So she said, well, we'll eat when we get back to the hotel. And I said, you want to go back to the hotel? And she says, yeah. I go, okay. So did a little walking around and shopping at the center there, the mall, and then I drove them back to the resort. And she looked at me like, you're not getting out. No, you wanted to go back to the resort. I didn't. I wanted to go hang out on Front Street and shop. So I let them off.
Okay, so you guys got on each other's nerves. All right, let me ask you the following question. According to you, the reason you wait from November until the following January to send a bill is because you were really busy with the fundraisers and whatever else you were handling. But my question to you is going to be this. What's relevant to me as a judge to figure out whether or not she was supposed to pay or not supposed to pay for the room is the evidence that happens before the trip. Mm-hmm. Because I know that the trip doesn't go so well, and then the aftermath of the trip goes even worse, okay. And then January comes. Okay. I don't want to see your text telling her to pay it in January. I want to see you were going to show me a text about the airfare to show that she was not being truthful when she said an hour beforehand. I want to see if there's a word in there about the hotel.
No, this was just the cost of the trip and the...
Well, I mean, if it's the cost of the trip, why isn't the hotel in there?
Because that's what she needed to get on the airline. And then this is what I bought on November 18th to take my granddaughter back, not knowing that she was going to be, she was going to pass away. But I bought the trip again so that I could take her. And I was just going to take the money that Wasina was supposed to reimburse me and just pay for this trip. Paid for it ahead of time, just put the money back in, that's all. I've had relationships, money relationships.
You're going to Maui, pack your bag, flight departs at 9:05.
Right.
Is there any evidence that you were going to charge her for half of the room anywhere in writing? What is that? That's the
This is me buying the trip again while we were there.
Yeah, that's not evidence that you told her beforehand, by the way, this will cost you an extra X. You have to prove to me that when she took the trip, she knew all of the costs, not just the airlines, but also anything else that you would expect her to pay. And on your side, there's you saying, did too. And on her side, not only is she saying did not, she's pointing to the text and saying it's not there. She's pointing to her text in January saying, what are you talking about? You never told me I had to pay for that. That was something you had paid for 2 years earlier. And there's no mention anywhere in writing anywhere to prove that your version is the correct one rather than hers.
Well,
and when you come into court, you have the burden of proof.
Sure.
You're the one who has to prove what it is you're saying. She has to be clear. She has already paid. And why didn't you pay it sooner than when you got the bill from her in January?
Because she said I could pay her when I could, so from the time
All
we
right,
got
so
back
when you get the
until
bill from her in January, she bills you for the airline, and she tells you, and by the way, your half of the hotel is X, right?
Yes.
And your response is, here's the airline. You write the check, not $100 a month or anything else. You just write the check, and you write for the airline. Did you also write for the bed?
Yes, I put that
The
in. My
$20
son slept on it. Okay, here we go.
And was there anything else included in the check you wrote?
None.
Right. And then the one thing you didn't pay was the hotel, because according to you, she had never told you before
discussed. Yes.
All right. So how are you going to prove your case that you told her before she took the trip?
This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
Ah yes, the magnificent Trolley Sour Bright Crawler, also known as Trollicus brightolus. The worm's captivating neon colour makes it an easy, gummy prey.
Trolley!
It's a surprisingly sour, invitingly chewy, staggeringly snackable species unlike anything else found on this planet.
Eat me!
Delicious. Visit Trolley.com to shop now.
Trolley, eat me!
My previous dealings with her were always in writing. And this
So why wasn't this in writing?
Okay, because it was last minute.
Okay, but it's not too last minute for the airfare to be in writing. Why don't you just say, by the way, so it'll be this? Because don't you think that, she's a mother of how many?
2.
And you're springing it on the last minute. Don't you think that she needs to know exactly what the whole trip will cost her? Why would you never have mentioned the hotel until she hurt your feelings?
I didn't not mention the hotel.
Well, then prove. Okay, no problem. I hear you.
But
prove it.
previously, she borrowed money from me, and I put it in writing. Always, we put it in writing.
A prior loan that she borrowed from you, you put it 100% in writing.
Each time.
So tell me, then explain to me. It only makes my angst greater that perhaps you are making up this theory that she has to pay for the hotel room because you had never brought it up with her beforehand because you're the kind of person who puts everything in writing. And I see nowhere where you are telling her the cost of the hotel room. Nowhere. I see you telling her the cost of the airfare. I never see you before the trip telling her she's gonna have to pay for the hotel room. I don't see you giving her the amount, but much less do I even hear you saying, hey, I'll tell you later what the amount is for the hotel. It's, I've got a hotel, I've already paid for it 2 years ago, my granddaughter can't go, do you wanna come? And here's what it'll cost to switch the tickets, but not really. It's what it'll cost to reimburse you for the tickets.
That's not,
my verdict in this case, based on your failure of proof, is for the defendant.
So the plaintiff fails to prove her case to the judge. She does not get the $1,097 she wanted from the defendant. Let's see how she feels about it. Ms. Kirkland, what's your response to what the judge just told you?
Well, I feel like it was unfair. I offered her the trip. I told her what it was going to cost. She said she would take that. It was short notice, and that's the only reason that it wasn't in writing.
You explained that to the judge, but as the judge pointed out, there was no proof you told her. Just no proof, so you couldn't prove it.
I know that. And I also know that she recorded me without my permission, and she'll be hearing from the county sheriff when she gets back.
Really? From the sheriff?
Yes.
My goodness gracious.
Yes.
Well, listen, Ms. Kirkland, I'm sorry it didn't work out for you in court. The exit is on your left there.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's see what Ms. Fox has to say about this. At least she prevailed in court. Ms. Fox, you must feel pretty good right now. Am I right?
Yes.
Was it really a trip from hell?
Yes, it was. Based on the avenues that I explained in court, it was not the way I envisioned the trip to be. As I said, I thought we would be in bliss, having a good time with me and my children, as well as her, and that is not the direction it went.
All right. Well, listen, congratulations. She says you're going to hear from the sheriff. I don't know what that's going to mean to you, but what do you think?
I don't have any finding in that. I'm not certain what she's calculating or what she has spoken upon. So that's within herself and something she's choosing to do out of spite.
Okay. Well, listen, congratulations. You have prevailed, and good luck to you.
Well, Doug, look, I mean, really what won this for the defendant were emails. And we have talked about this before, but, it used to be, before the internet, you just needed a written document. And that was the only way you could really chronicle who owed what to who. Now you have emails and texts that can be just as powerful, in some cases even more powerful than contracts themselves, because it shows the true intention of the parties.
When a litigant in a case is ordered to leave the courtroom and then found guilty, how are they advised of the court's verdict?
If you have to exclude somebody from the courtroom because of misbehavior, threats, acting up, yelling, things like that, typically you put them in a room where there's a video feed, so they're watching and hearing what's going on. So if they're so disruptive that they can't be in the courtroom when the verdict is taken, they can watch and hear it that way.
Certainly,
right?
that's the case at the People's Court.
In courthouses, I think most of them are equipped for that nowadays here in the United States, pretty much everywhere, I got to imagine.
Right, and if not, you just bring the defendant in. We're thinking now criminal cases, because this happens very often in criminal cases.
Right,
you then bring him in afterwards and let him announce what happened on the record. But
every now and then you have somebody, a defendant in a criminal case, who really presents a danger. I mean, you think in your mind of what's the movie where they wheel the guy in on a dolly, like a hand truck,
Hannibal
with a
Lecter?
hockey mask on. Right. But I have had cases. I had one case involving a guy who had 3 times already been sentenced to death by 3 different juries, and the case was reversed each time. And he became disruptive in the courtroom, and he was a really big guy. And the corrections officers who were working in my division before the 4th trial suggested that maybe we should put a stun belt on him, and they would hold on to the button and would deliver, 20,000 volts or something, and kind of get his attention if he misbehaved. But we never had to do it because after he heard about that, his behavior got better.
Oh.
So, yeah. So.
This episode is brought to you by National Geographic, presenting its new documentary film, Endurance. Follow the greatest survival story ever told, unpacking the legendary feat of polar explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton, who kept his crew alive for over a year, despite losing their ship in frigid pack ice. Over a century later, a team of modern-day explorers set out to find the sunken ship. Endurance, now streaming on Hulu and Disney+.
This is the plaintiff, Nicholas Stoddard. He says his son parked his truck in front of the defendant's house, and the guy had it towed. The truck was disabled. He was trying to get it removed, but the nasty defendant jumped the gun and had it towed away. The tow cost him $551.05, and he's suing the defendant for just that. Why? Because the guy refuses to reimburse him. This is the defendant, Joseph Carey. He says the plaintiff left his truck in front of his driveway, blocking access in and out of his house. So you darn tootin' he had it towed. The plaintiff needs to learn a lesson that parking illegally will have consequences, and that includes having to pay for a tow if you block someone's house. He's accused of not having any patience.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket, the plaintiff says that his ex-wife's nasty neighbor illegally towed his car and he wants some reimbursement. But the defendant says the plaintiff constantly blocks his driveway and he's had it, so he got him towed. It's the case of you drive me crazy.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Stoddard, you're suing Mr. Carey for the cost of a tow because Mr. Carey had your car towed. Tell me what happened.
On 5 February, my son borrowed my truck. Well, actually, the day before, he had borrowed my truck, stayed the night at his mother's house. He had parked the vehicle close to the parking spot. He got out, realized
What is close to what parking spot?
So the parking spaces are painted, kind of squared off. In front of it's a trailer park, so in front of his mother's residence. So he parked, got out, and realized he wasn't quite in the lines.
Okay.
This was late in the evening. He called me and said that the vehicle wouldn't restart. So I asked him, I tried to troubleshoot it with him a little bit, and then we couldn't figure it out.
So he was trying to restart it in order to park it correctly?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Then as he was trying to restart it, he had put it in neutral and it rolled a little extra forward. So then he just put it in park, and I said, hey, I'll be by in the morning. Is it blocking anybody's way? Can they get out? Is it blocking the street? He assured me it wasn't. Then the next day he called me, my son called me about 10 a.m., asked me or told me that the vehicle had been towed. Then I started to investigate why it was towed, who towed it, tracked it down. Come to find out, the defendant called the tow company and had my vehicle towed.
Okay. And why was your vehicle towed? In other words, I can't call a tow company and say, hey, tow that guy's car. You have to be legally parked to get towed. There have to be some violation that authorizes the tow. You can't just say, hey, you know what? I hate my ex-boyfriend. There's his car. It's parked there. Go tow it. There has to be a violation. So what was the problem? Did you call for the tow, Mr. Carey?
Yeah, he was blocking my mailbox/driveway, and the truck was not even partly in the painted spots. There was a vehicle actually parked in the spots.
So he created his own parking space.
Exactly, and this is not an isolated incident. This happens constantly.
With that car?
That vehicle, yes, and this gentleman's other vehicles.
This gentleman, the plaintiff's other vehicles?
We have the pictures of his white Mustang later on that day.
Who has the white Mustang, Mr. Stoddard?
I own that, but I only use it to go pick up my youngest son from his mother, so I'm always there less than 10, 15 minutes.
Right, but how often are you going to park in front of the guy's driveway? I mean, he's kind of sick of it. Have you guys ever spoken about this?
Yes, my wife has messaged his ex-wife, I believe, multiple times.
Multiple times. And what does she say?
That she's going to have him stop doing it.
And then he doesn't stop doing it.
Correct.
So did your son, when he, according to you, the car's, quote, disabled, all right? I presume it remained disabled after you picked it up after the tow, right? Mr. Stoddard? Mr. Stoddard and only Mr. Stoddard. So do you have any evidence that you fixed the car?
I do, yes, ma'am. I submitted a receipt for the starter motor that had gone out.
All right. Can I ask you a question? How old is your son?
He's 19.
Okay, why didn't your son knock on the door of the neighbor and explain the circumstance? Maybe you wouldn't gotten towed if somebody had that courtesy.
My son, he isn't comfortable because he's had issues with Mr. Carey in the past.
Ah, the plot thickens. What were the issues that your son has had with Mr. Carey in the past?
I guess the kids, I don't know too much about this situation with them, but I guess the kids, the younger kids would be playing in the street and, excuse me, Mr. Carey, I guess he gets real irritated about kids playing in the street. So he's come out and yelled at the kids, yelled at my ex-wife.
Mr. Carey, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I have 2 kids of my own that play in the street. We have a basketball court in front of our house that my kids play in front of the street. They ride their bikes all the time.
So what is he referring to about confrontations with his children? Anything?
Well, the kids I know they have yelled at my wife. They've come on our property without asking. They've basically treated our property as if as their own. Like we'll come home sometimes and they're walking out of our driveway.
So knowing that, why park the car there? And then it looks like an act of aggression.
He didn't purposely park the car there.
Well, he turned the car off. That's how the car turned off, and then it wouldn't start up again. So, yes, he purposely parked the car. He parked the car in that spot. Why pick that spot? I guess was he partially blocking your driveway or entirely blocking your driveway, Mr. Carey? Partially. So you were able to get your car out.
I had to wake my wife up because we had a new car. I didn't want to take the chance of scratching it.
Right. Yeah,
So,
see,
yeah,
you don't get to partially block someone's driveway either. That's why I'm just not understanding. Did you ever write to the mobile home park and ask them for some guidance on any of this, Mr. Stoddard?
I did. I reached out to
Because you thought they're the
home.
ones who ordered the tow, right? That maybe Mr. Carey complained to them and then they ordered the tow, right?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
But that's not what happened.
No, I reached out to them. They said they were not aware of the tow. And to my understanding, it's if there's an issue with a parking violation, then the tenant is to reach out to the management, and they're the ones to initiate.
I don't see that
the
in
tow.
anything you handed me. If you're blocking my driveway, I'm going to call a tow company. He can't, I mean, in what world could he not call? So in any event, they actually answered you, the mobile home park, right?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And what did they say to you?
They did say that based off the picture that was provided, that
Pictures provided by whom?
One picture that was submitted was by Mr. Carey. I'm guessing he submitted that to the security company.
Okay.
But based off of that picture, they said it was blocking a mailbox. It was partially blocking a driveway, partially in the street.
Hold on one second. This is the Mustang, and this is actually whose car? That's Mr. That's your car, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Stoddard? And when was this picture taken, Mr. Carey?
That was when I was at work after the tow truck had picked up his truck.
So you block his driveway when you come the next time as well, Mr. Stoddard?
Your Honor, there's not a lot of space to move around there. I was actually trying to help my son.
No,
move the truck.
there are designated spaces, but we don't get as a society to say, it's really crowded here, so I'll just create my own. What is this a picture of, Mr. Carey?
That's where the truck was. So if you can't really see the lines.
Do you have a picture actually of the truck or no? Parked in the space? Is this it?
That is the one, yes, correct.
You know, I suggest you get along with the person if you're going to be hogging half of their or a quarter of their driveway.
And this is not the first time. It's constant. It happens constantly.
Yeah.
This is the first incident I've ever heard of.
Please tell me, you were telling me what the mobile home park had said. What was it they said?
They did tell me, I don't have it in writing, but they did tell me that, they, based off the pictures, they wouldn't have had it towed. They would have just got a hold of the...
I'm sorry, you don't have that in writing?
I don't have it in writing. No.
You actually have in writing the exact opposite of what you're saying.
Yes,
you
ma'am.
provided it to me. It's the opposite of what you're saying is in writing because you're the one who provided it to me. The letter that the mobile park gave to you, you actually provided to me, which says, we understand your concern and confusion, blah, blah, blah. But after reviewing the provided attachment, it seems the vehicle was in fact in violation of community guidelines. It's clearly not parked in a marked designated community guest parking spot, which may call for immediate towing. The vehicle seems to be parked in the middle of the street without flashing hazards, which could then block oncoming traffic. The vehicle was parked in front of a mailbox, which may call for immediate towing. The vehicle had been unattended longer than 15 minutes. So they actually tell you the complete opposite of what you're saying. So what is your legal grounds to have him pay for your towing that your son richly deserved, according to your evidence? Why would he have to pay for it?
Your Honor, my issue is that it's not the tenant's right to call and have somebody else's vehicle
Prove
towed.
that.
Like there's...
Prove that. What you just said. Prove that.
Okay.
No, I need you to prove it. I'm willing to listen.
Yeah, you're right. I can't prove that. I don't
Okay,
have
verdict
anything
for
right.
the defendant. And let me suggest that you and yours stop doing this. If you don't have a parking space, you don't get to park. That's what happens when all the parking spaces are taken. Or you have to park a little further and walk. But you don't get to block his driveway. He gets to call and get you towed and cost you $500 every stinking time you do it. So don't do it. It's simple. Follow the rules the rest of us have to live by.
So the plaintiff fails to get the defendant to pay for that $551 tow. He's going to have to pay it himself. Mr. Stoddard, you heard the judge. You better watch where you park. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. She's right. I accept her verdict.
All right. You better tell your son the same thing, too. So wise up. Mr. Carey, I gather you don't feel bad at all about having him towed, do you?
That's not that. It's a reoccurring thing. I'm tired of it. I didn't want to have to do it, but it does. They keep doing that. So, I mean.
All right. Well, most people would feel the way you do, I think, probably. So here's forewarning that if he does it again, you'll do it again, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Open and shut case here.
Doug, I'm going to say it again, short and sweet. This was a case where pictures made a huge difference. Pictures to prove your case.
My neighbors have a dangerous tree. I've let the 3 different owners of the place know. The tree drops big branches on my property and the entire thing is leaning my way. If it falls because they don't deal with it, will they be responsible for any damages since they've been told about it?
Yes, because that tree, even if it's not diseased, may have a dangerous condition, which is that it is leaning over towards your property and potentially putting you and yours at peril because of the lean. So long as you have an arborist who can testify to that, who will say, yeah, this is going to come down in the slightest of winds, it's not, I think that you're in a very good position. Now, when you say, since I've told them, hopefully you've told them in writing because
people have a funny way of
forgetting what you told them.
Amnesia about being told stuff when
their wallets are involved.
Right.
Exactly. So
of course, it is possible if you end up in a real dispute about this that they have their arborist who says, yeah, it's leaning a bit, but it's a healthy tree. That doesn't mean it's going to fall over.
No, not every leaning tree is a problem. So there's leaning, and then there's leaning. So it really depends. It's a matter of degrees, literally. So it really does depend on what we're talking about. The degree of the leaning and the danger, and that you can prove both notice and the fact that it's dangerous.
Sure. Okay, we are out of time. Before we go, you can check out our podcast. You can check out our YouTube channel. You just can't get enough court these days. That's the way I see it. See you next time.